The illegitimate son of a branch of the Song family, who was serving as the governor in Lingnan, stepped on some kind of bad luck and repeatedly caught the emperor's eye. He stayed in the remote Lingnan for more than a decade and even managed to make a name for himself, suppressing the eldest grandson of the Song family and returning to the capital to become the youngest Attic elder of the Zhou Dynasty. At the time when the imperial grandsons were choosing wives, the illegitimate daughter of Song Ji's hometown, who had been living on the estate since returning to the capital, had some kind of bad luck. By chance, she saved the crown prince of Prince Su's mansion who had been assassinated and seriously injured, and was directly promised by the crown prince. Shocked by the beauty circle in Beijing. Song Qinyue. M.D. She came to save the male lead. How could she save the villainous boss? Keywords of the novel. The daily pop-ups of the book wearing group pets of science experts, the complete download of the text of the daily life of the book wearing group pets of science experts, and the latest chapter reading of the daily life of the book wearing group pets of science experts. Chapter 1. The little mute suddenly says something. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The little mute suddenly says something. The mansion of Guangzhou Governor Song Jianming was decorated with lights and colorful decorations today, full of joy. The servants were in a hurry, and vehicles were constantly passing by in front of the mansion. And he, who had just given birth, sat in front of the bronze mirror and carefully examined her face. She asked the nursing mother standing beside her with concern, "Mom Chin, have I gained weight?" Chin Mama on one side dipped a comb in osmanthus oil and carefully helped her comb her shiny black hair. With a smile on her face, she said, "No way. Madam, this is a blessing. No one in the 10 miles and 8 villages says Madam is lucky. Just look at how many guests have come today for our brothers and sisters. Did the master say anything when spring and autumn had children? Did the master still love you?" And he smiled sweetly upon hearing the words. It was also true that the 3 girls and 5 young masters in the mansion were all born in Guangzhou. At that time, Song Sai had just been serving as the governor of Guangzhou for a year, and she was still in the boudoir at that time. She didn't even hear a sound, but today, for the sake of her 2 dragon and phoenix twins, the guests at the grand banquet, wasn't it because the master cared about her? Chin Mama saw the shy smile on her own girl's face and continued to say pleasing words, "Now in our mansion, you are the largest one. There are no father.in.law or sister.in.law or sister.in.law. Spring and autumn aunties dare not even breathe in front of you. Look, this morning, spring and autumn aunties are eagerly sending gifts." And he snorted disdainfully and said, "What can those 2 lowly maids send?" Chin Mama immediately showed 2 gifts to Aunt He. One was a jade bracelet of excellent quality, and the other was a baby's belly bag embroidered like an ordinary piece. Aunt He sneered and threw the belly bag onto the ground, with the corners of her mouth hanging down. She said coldly, "Who gave this to? This is sending beggars." The girl beside her, Lu Zhu, immediately stepped on her belly and said, "Who else can it be? That spring aunt who cries all day. That foolish ghost." Even the money was scammed away by the monks and Taoist priests. I think the 3 sisters are unlucky. The Buddha and the Heavenly Lord don't want to care about anyone. She has been infatuated with a foreign Taoist recently, and she went to that place early this morning called the church. She went to worship a foreign immortal instead. Another girl, Zijing, sarcastically said. And he smiled and immersed her hands in rose water for Chin Mama to massage her. She lowered her long eyelashes, glanced at her fair and smooth hands, and sighed, "That 3 sisters, I think they are a disaster star. Ye spend so much money on medicine every year, but there is no sound. Ah! That girl must have been sick again last night. Chin Mama, you can help me send some bird's nest to the Emerald Pavilion later." "I obey your orders, Our Lady is beautiful and kind-hearted," praised Chin Mama. Upon hearing her call herself Madam, and he felt a sense of unease in her heart. She was the legitimate daughter of the He family, but was sent by her parents to be a good concubine for Song Sai. Fortunately, Lady Zheng stayed in the capital for the study of her 3 sons, and the remaining 2 aunties were all raised by having children together. The promissory note was still held in the hands of Lady He in the capital, and in other words, she was still a slave. How could she be compared to herself? In the southern suburbs, 1 mile away from the Mazu Temple in Baiyun Mountain, there is an abandoned Tudi temple. The original plaque of the earth god has long been lost, replaced by a cross with a half-fruit man hanging from it. Seeing his face turn red and his ears turn red, he is forced to wear a piece of coarse linen cloth. The nearby villagers all disdain coming over, it's shameful and uncivilized. Father Ai, the bearded missionary with curly hair, was wearing a patched black robe and wearing Aunt Chun, kneeling in front of the cross to pray. After praying, he also went to the yard to plant potatoes and corn. He has sunken cheeks and a waxy yellow complexion, looking even more destitute than a fisherman. If it weren't for this female believer, he would really have run out of food this month. He has been here for almost 15 years now, and there are basically no obstacles to communicating in Chinese on a daily basis. However, there are still very few believers. Incense can float from the Mazu temple next door every half kilometer, and Father Ai doesn't know why people in this land don't believe in God. After praying with the foreign Taoist, Aunt Chun still shed tears. Father Ai comforted her by saying that everything was arranged by God. As long as she firmly believed in God and prayed every day, her daughter would definitely be saved. Aunt Chun thanked the foreign Taoist and threw a few broken silver coins into the merit box. She was about to leave with her daughter when she suddenly heard the seriously ill 3-year-old baby mutter, "What nonsense! Ah, novels take human lives." Why did she believe in her best friend's evil and open this rebirth Shuangwen? Now she is also satisfied. Look, where did she wear it? This Tongfang named Chuanhe gave birth to a baby girl 3 years ago. This baby girl often falls ill due to premature birth. Doctors say that this child won't survive. Aunt Chun probably has postpartum depression and spends her days crying and crying. Later on, she started to become superstitious and used her limited savings to pray to the gods and Buddha everywhere. Now, she has actually come to this neglected and dilapidated church. The priest was also a half-hearted doctor. Once, he happened to wake up an unconscious baby girl, and from then on, Aunt Chun had a deep belief in this priest Ai. Half a month ago, the little baby girl was probably dead, replaced by the soul of Song Qingyue. Then, the body of this weak and sickly little baby girl traveled through the time and space in this book. For the past half-month, Song Qingyue has suffered from the torment of her soul occasionally leaving her body, mostly in an unconscious state. Until today, she has become slightly sober and listened to the priest's ghost talk. As an atheist, she just wants to say one word. Pooh. Ah. Yuer. Yuer. Did you speak just now? What did you say? Call me Nyang, okay. Hey. The milk doll let out an old sigh, hoping to give this foolish woman a pair of white eyes. She closed her eyes and was too lazy to pay attention. This Aunt Chun is only 18 years old at best, and in her eyes, she is still a teenage girl. She can't even utter the sound of her mother. But with just one sigh, Aunt Chun was overjoyed. Anyway, her sister did speak just now. She immediately knelt down and banged heavily on the statue of Jesus, with the oily skin on her forehead torn. She also threw all the silver on her body into the merit box. Got it, Song Qingyue shook her head secretly. She shouldn't have opened her eyes. Look, she's ruined her wealth again. Returning from Baiyun Mountain to Song Mansion, Aunt Chun was so happy that she wanted to go find Song Fourth Master and tell her that the 3 sisters could finally speak. Earlier, Song Sai was receiving guests in the study, and a large group of guards with swords stood at the door, blocking Aunt Chun from entering. Aunt Kichuan didn't know what kind of madness she had gone through. Perhaps she had been depressed for too long, and her brain was a bit abnormal. She started shouting at the door of the study courtyard, "Sir! Fourth master! Come and see third sister!" She finally spoke. "It's true. Chuanhe didn't lie to you. How are you coming to see third sister? Fourth master." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Bear Child Throws Down a Tree. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Bear Child throws down a tree. As soon as Song Quan, the steward of the Song family, saw her posture, he frowned and gave a glance to the servants on both sides of the mansion. Immediately, some servants came up and wanted to drag Aunt Chun out, but Aunt Chun didn't know where the strength came from. The two servants didn't subdue her for a while, and a few guards with swords cursed at her in secret. They stepped forward and kicked Aunt Chun, who was making a fuss, to the ground, sternly scolding, "What are you arguing about? You've disturbed the nobleman, can you bear it?" Aunt Chun was kicked and rolled around on the ground, while Song Qingyue was held in her arms and also rolled around. My aunt's skirt was covered in dust and she was still muttering incessantly, but let me see the master, let me see him, the three sisters can speak, really can speak. The guard saw the woman entangled endlessly and placed her hand on the handle of the knife, ready to draw it out. "Wait a minute." At this moment, a young man in splendid attire jumped off the wall and kicked the back of the guard's hand, then kicked the half-drawn steel knife back into its sheath. What's wrong with kicking people all the time? He was not tall and was still a child. He scolded the guards with his back, but was full of airs. He bent down and looked closely at the milk doll held in Aunt Chun's arms. The two of them, their big black grape-like eyes, stared at each other. The little gentleman reached out and poked the pink little face of the milk doll. The feeling was really good. He grinned and said, "Hee, how old are you? Can you talk?" Aunt Chun immediately got up and knelt down to kowtow to the young master. Go back to the young master. Our sister is 3 years old. Can you just speak at the age of 3? The young master exclaimed in surprise, "When I was 3 years old, I could memorize the 3-character classic." "Why are you so foolish? You're stupid." The sudden words from the milk doll startled the maidservants and mother-in-law who came to manage Song Quan. Behind the young man, there was a thin and delicate young man with a white and delicate face who scolded in a sharp and delicate voice, "You're reckless." At first glance, he knew it was a small yellow door. Being despised by the young man in the brocade, he waved his hand and gestured for him to stay on the side. He even turned around and glared at the person. "Wanfu, shut up. What are you doing to a 3-year-old doll?" Xiao Naiwa nodded in agreement on the side, and Xiaolin Gongwei shrunk his mouth in grievances and retreated to the side. The young man reached out and pinched the face of the baby doll again. Her hand was so strong that Song Qingyue was in excruciating pain. She was such a bear child, and her actions were not particularly important. She called out, "Be gentle." Her voice was crisp and clear, and her mouth was clear. The servants of the Song mansion around were all stunned, and there was a buzzing sound of discussion. The young man laughed heartily and crouched in front of Aunt Chun, lifting his head to ask Song Quan. She has never spoken before. Song Quan respectfully bent down and replied, "Prince Hui, the 3 sisters have not said a word until now. We all thought they were mute." Really? The little man touched his chin and stared into the baby's eyes, feeling that the baby's gaze was particularly agile, as if he knew what they were saying. He reached out his hand and asked, "Give me a hug." Aunt Chun hesitated, but Song Quan immediately made a decision for her to take Song Qingyue out of her arms and put her in the arms of little Lang Jun. "Hee, little one, call out to me, brother." The young man stood up holding her, his beautiful eyes shining with the radiance of stars. Song Qingyue can't shout out, this bear cub is still a primary school student. Hold her steady and don't throw her. Feed her. Little boy, she murmured in a low voice. She thought her voice was low enough and could not speak clearly enough. Unexpectedly, little Lang Jun understood and raised her eyebrows. Who taught you to say that? The threat in your eyes was very obvious. Don't fall on me. Song Qinghua hesitated for a second and shouted, brother, obediently in soulless, hey, that's right. Can my brother take you to play? Little Lang Jun's face is like white jade, his sword eyebrows and starry eyes, and he smiles like an April spring breeze. He looks like an angel, and when he grows up, he will definitely harm many girls and children, Song Qinghua thought. However, soon she became so angry that she only wanted to curse her mother. He's not an angel at all, he's a demon, a complete demon. The young man saw that she was lazy and seemed to not want to talk to him. He also heard from the steward of the Song family that the child had never cried after being born. How can this work? He poked at the flesh on her face and hands, rubbed her hair, and even threw her around for fun. Damn it! Damn it! With the screams of the maids and maids around, Song Qinghua was sandwiched under his armpit and carried on a 3-meter-high old locust tree. How about it, tall or not? Afraid or not? The young man saw her wrinkled face and blushed angrily, but his eyes didn't have any tears in them. Is it true that you can't cry? He thought to himself, would you like to play something more exciting? At this moment, someone under the tree angrily rebuked, rebel son, get off my king. Oh, my dad called him, he looked down, grinned, and suddenly let go of his hands. With the exclamation of the milk doll and the surrounding maids and servants, Song Qinghua was thrown directly from the 3-meter-high tree by this bare child. Sleeping slut. I almost blurted out a national curse. Aunt Chun was directly frightened and fainted, falling into the arms of a rough old woman. Fortunately, there was no danger, and Song Qinghua was firmly caught by the strong and handsome man who angrily scolded the little brat under the tree. Song Qinghua's anger was instantly healed by the handsome and incomparable face when she saw him. This handsome guy seemed to have lightness skills and flew up, catching him very steadily. Song Qinghua was not injured at all, and then she was sent to another handsome guy's arms by the handsome guy. If that guy just now was a muscular and handsome guy with a strong aura, this time he is a refined fairy-like figure like moonlight. Oh, by the way, this immortal figure is her own father, the 29-year-old Guangzhou prefect, Song Jianming, and Song fourth master. It doesn't matter, it doesn't affect her appreciation of handsome guys. Her father hasn't even hugged her before, so it's the first time she's seen this elegant and handsome dad up close. On the other side, a handsome and robust man climbed up the tree with light skills, grabbed the bare child by the back collar, and slammed him to the ground. He pulled out his whip from his waist and was about to whip him. The little gentleman's movements were so fast that it was difficult to see clearly. He jumped up like a monkey, leaping out for more than 10 meters, and a whip fell into the air, making a very loud and crisp sound on the ground. The handsome and robust brother was so angry that he chased after him, whipping and cursing, "Stinky kid, you're trying to kill me. I'll see if I don't skin you today." As the young man fled, he exclaimed, "Oh my, father, spare your life. Oh my, you've beaten your son to death. Oh my. Father, why are you so cruel and painful to his death?" He shouted loudly, but in fact, the whip didn't even touch his hair. The sound of a snap gradually faded away. These guards looked expressionless and didn't take it seriously. A few close to the yellow gate followed quickly, and it seemed that they all had some time to spare. Song Jianming held Song Qinghua, one big and one small, looking at the father and son who had passed away with speechless expressions, and at the same time let out a sigh. Song Jianming sighed as he heard the baby in his arms and looked down at her with a funny expression. I saw the milk doll roll its eyes at him, with a cold attitude, but its voice was so sweet that it made me tingle all over. Hello, Mr. Song. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Song Laosi brand chili sauce. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 3 Song Laosi Brand Chili Sauce 3 years later. In the spring of the 27th year of Jingning, Song Sai had already stayed as the governor of Guangzhou for the 6th year. This year was a crucial one, and if he achieved excellent results in the evaluation, he was expected to be transferred back to the capital. Unfortunately, the heavens did not meet people's wishes. At this time, the Japanese Empire, which was far away in the east, was at the end of the dynasty and began to enter a period of chaos in a nationwide armed struggle among villagers. A large number of lords, nobles, and warriors who failed in the armed struggle within the Japanese Empire ran to the sea to become pirates. The coastal areas of Dazhou, from Zhejiang to Fujian and then to Guangdong, have frequent incidents of Japanese pirates. 3 days ago, a Japanese pirate massacre occurred in Huiyang County, resulting in the death of more than 100 village names and an extremely heinous nature. The county magistrate of Huiyang sent someone to rush to Guangzhou Prefecture overnight to notify the 4th Prince of Song from Taiwan and the governor of Guangdong, Mr. Shen. Song Jianming took people to the governor's office to discuss countermeasures with Mr. Shen. In the Song mansion, Song Qingyue, a 6-year-old girl named Song San, was writing a book in her room with a specially made fountain pen. As for what book she was writing, it turned out to be a comparison table between traditional Chinese characters and simplified characters. At the gate of the hospital, Aunt Chun wanted to visit her daughter with a box of dim sum, but she was stopped by the woman at the gate. "Aunt, the girl told me that no one is allowed to enter when she is busy." And he led a pair of dragon and phoenix twins, followed by Aunt Chiu, who was holding the 5th prince, and a group of maids passing by. Seeing Aunt Chun's embarrassment, they all sneered and laughed loudly. "Hee, what's the use of the 3 sisters being liked by the master again?" "Oh, I'm not close to you at all, you tell me," Aunt Chiu sneered. Aunt Chun lowered her head and remained silent, placing the food box in the hands of the gatekeeper. With tears in her eyes, she left with immense resentment and grievances. And he looked at the Moyu pavilion where the 3 sisters lived, spacious and bright. There was a pond in the yard and the swings and slides made of bamboo by her father himself. Her eyes turned red with jealousy. Qin Mama immediately said with a strange tone, "These 3 girls are really evil. They keep themselves locked up in the house all day and don't go anywhere. I think they are just monsters." "Who said it's not like that? It's not like a child at all, with a bad temper and a hard temper. Maybe even if the master keeps a white-eyed wolf," Aunt Chiu and Grandma Qin sang in unison. In the afternoon, Song Sai returned to his mansion, and he prepared a table of good wine and food, waiting for him to come and eat together. Unexpectedly, a servant from the main hall came to report that the old master had left the mansion again, and she had also left the mansion with the 3rd girl. And he bit her lips and twisted a handkerchief in her hand, feeling so uncomfortable that she turned the river upside down. Since 3 years ago, on the day of the full moon wine of her twins, the 3rd girl who had not spoken for 3 years suddenly spoke up, and Song Sai gradually began to lose his heart and dote on the 3rd girl like a madman. Not only did she give the best and closest moyukshuan to the main hall to the 3rd girl to live alone, but she also took her with her anytime and anywhere, and even the study that the 5th and 6th young masters couldn't enter, the 3rd girl could enter and exit freely. Mr. Song was very impatient with teaching the 5th and 6th young masters, and was prone to physical abuse. However, he was able to hold the 3rd girl in his lap every day and teach her how to study. His level of madness even made Mr. Song lose interest in women. Auntie Chun keeps talking all day long, and Song Sai has long been tired of her and unwilling to step into her courtyard door. However, Song Sai rarely steps into the doors of Auntie He and Auntie Chiu, and the other 2 brought from the capital, Xia Feng and Dong Mei, have completely lost their favor. These 3 girls are simply like little fox spirits. "You say, 4th master, is he treating 3rd Mississippi?" And he twisted her handkerchief in her hand, with a fierce expression on her face. Qin Mama immediately stopped her and nervously said, "Oh my aunt. Don't talk nonsense, be careful not to be known by fourth master. And he angrily flicked her handkerchief to fan herself. It wasn't that she was overthinking it, but it was Song Si who doted on Miss San and became a bit insane. She certainly wouldn't know. 3 years ago, Song Qingyue used her pocket money to buy potatoes, corn, and chili peppers grown in the yard from the old priest and handed them over to the handsome father. So Song Sai tried to plant potatoes on the farm and he married him for a year, and it turned out that the yield of potatoes per acre could reach as high as 8,900 pounds. The yield of corn per mu can also reach up to 500 to 600 kilograms, and corn particles and leaves are also good feed, which can be fed to chickens, pigs, and cows. Mr. Song's breeding farm is thriving, and farmers near Guangzhou Prefecture are also learning from the governor to feed chickens and pigs with corn. In addition, corn yields much higher than soybeans and is drought-resistant, making it very suitable for feeding horses. After vigorous promotion by the court, the army's horses now eat beans, ginseng, and corn, which has greatly reduced the cost of raising horses. Song Jianming reported the situation of 2 crops to the court through Lord Shen, which shocked the entire court. The emperor ordered people to try planting on the imperial estate for a season and found that Lord Song and Lord Shen did not exaggerate. It is said that the emperor laughed up to the sky in the Jinluan Hall for this and specially gifted many gold and silver to commend Guangdong Governor Shen and Guangzhou Governor Song. In addition, Mr. Song's fourth brand chili sauce also sold very well. In 2 years, Mr. Song earned a lot of money and was no longer the poor and petty son of the Song family. Back in the day, Song Silang, who was in his prime, was a leader among the descendants of the Song family in Jiangling. At the age of 16, he passed the imperial examination and was detained by his family for 3 years before he was allowed to pass the imperial examination. At the age of 19, he was appointed as a scout by the emperor. Everyone said that his articles were on par with those of the top scorer, but Song Silang's skin was really beautiful, with red lips and white teeth, and a clear eyebrow. His young master was like a jade, and he was even favored by Liang Huayu, the eldest daughter of the Ministry of Personnel's attendant family. Even if he knew he was a concubine of the Song family, he was not the only one who refused to marry. In this way, Song Silang of Jiangling flourished in the capital and was often called by the emperor to speak in the imperial study during his tenure as a scholar. He also taught the crown prince and other princes. After staying at the Hanlin Academy for 3 years, Song Jianming was promoted to the position of Water Department Chief under the operation of the Yu family. Because he had made great achievements in repairing embankments and managing water, he was promoted to the position of Foreign Minister of the Ministry of Works in just 2 years, and his promotion speed was unparalleled. Just as Song Silang was feeling proud and thought he could continue to rise above the blue clouds in the capital, he was forced to transfer to the Lingnan area far away from the Heavenly Emperor to Guangzhou Prefecture because he wanted to make way for the eldest son of the Song family. There is an unwritten rule in the court that officials from the same family cannot serve as high-ranking officials in central government agencies at the same time, and there must be an external transfer. However, the areas of external transfer are generally very far from the capital, and one cannot always brush their face in front of the emperor, so the speed of promotion naturally slows down. Who knows when the emperor will forget about them in those remote corners? So Mr. Song, who arrived at Guangzhou Prefecture for the first time, came with frustration and resentment. Who knew that Song Silang was just a chosen son? Having a precious daughter, not only is she a super genius, but also his lucky star. Even in the Lingnan region thousands of miles away, Song Silang can still brush his face in front of His Majesty. Ha ha ha. Song Sai crossed his waist, raised his eyebrows and exhaled. How could he not offer up his little lucky star like a bodhisattva? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Encountering Lost Stories Again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Encountering Lost Stories Again. In the small courtyard of the governor's office, Song Qingyue was squatting on the edge of a flower pot, bored and playing with burning caterpillars with a newly acquired glass magnifying glass. It is said that the original Japanese translator in the yamen suddenly fell ill and could not come to the yamen to help interrogate the captured prisoner. Therefore, Song Qinyue, who had a slight understanding of Japanese, was brought to the yamen by her father for help. As a result, when they arrived at the yamen, they found that they had two other translators, so there was no place for Song Qinyue to be useful. Therefore, Lord Song left her to play on her own in the yard. As for this glass magnifying glass, it was a gift for her 6th birthday. Hey, I'm already a person in my 30s, why do I still find it fun to burn insects with a magnifying glass? Song Qinyue silently thought. A man is a boy until he dies, and a woman is also a girl until she dies, okay. The young master sitting on the tree reading was attracted by Song Qinyue's new gameplay and stared at her intently. He probably doesn't remember what he did 3 years ago when he was so angry and resentful. He just felt that the little sticky rice ball under the tree was so beautiful and cute, pink and tender, soft, easy to knead and pinch. Itchy hands, want to pinch her face, what to do? Hey, hey! He shouted. Song Qinyue lifted her head and met the handsome eyes of the young man. In an instant, a round little face wrinkled like a bun. Ha! She recognizes him, it's the little kid who threw himself down the tree. Why? She asked cautiously. The beautiful young master jumped off the tree and smiled, which family are you from? Where do you care about me? Hey! Do you know who I am? Dare to talk to me like that? Song Qinyue rolled her eyes and said, I don't care who you are. TSK. You look quite soft, but you speak with thorns. Li Zhao was dissatisfied and took 2 steps forward, placing his hands under her armpits and lifting her up. Song Qinyue let out a scream, her short legs thumping and shouting, what are you doing? Let me down. Call me brother. Little brother, hey. You little girl. Call me brother. Your uncle. The young master was immediately amused and burst out laughing, as bright as peach and plum. It was really beautiful, but her heart was too dark. Song Qinyue snorted and reached out to pat the young master's head. Be good, put your sister down. Li Zhao, the young prince of the Su Wang family, was stunned by her strange behavior. After putting her down, he widened his eyes and stared at her. Call me brother. Song Qinyue ignored him and turned around to leave. What can you do with a shout? Hurry up and shout. Li Zhao followed closely behind, hey, where exactly do you come from? I look at you quite well. Brother, why don't you take you to the boat to play? Go see the sea, go fishing. Are you going or not? Li Zhao chattered a long time, and Song Qinyue only coldly replied, you're so annoying. I'm annoyed. I'll tell you, I'm the crown prince of Su. Don't be ignorant. Prince Su. How do you feel a bit familiar? Suddenly, Song Qinyue's hair stood on end, and she remembered. Li Zhao, the legitimate eldest son of His Royal Highness Prince Su, is the villainous boss of this novel who insists on fighting the male and female protagonists until the last few chapters. She became alert all over and took 2 steps back, saying, Stop. You can't come any closer. Stay away from me. The more she said that, the more the bear child wanted to get closer to her. What kind of stinky problem? Wait. Don't come over. Stay away, I'll call you, brother. Li Zhao thought for a moment, took 2 steps back, then smiled and said, all right, call me brother. Brother. Song Qinyue quickly uttered 2 words and ran wildly into the yamen. Help, she's going to find her dad. In the gloomy dungeon of the governor's office, adults are listening to the interrogation of a Japanese prisoner of war. Several adults and His Royal Highness Su Wang sat leisurely drinking tea in this place emitting a bloody smell. The Japanese people came from next door shouting something in bird language. Song Qingyue was taken to the entrance of the dungeon by a yamen official. He asked her to wait here for a while, and he went in and called for Lord Song to come out. However, Song Qingyue's curiosity was violated and she walked in without authorization. The servants in the yamen recognized her and didn't care about her. Song Qingyue strolled around the dungeon like this. This place really feels like a haunted house from a past life. Before crossing over, she was also known as Song Qingyue, and the Song family she came from was a prestigious family in the Jiangnan region. Her great-great-grandfather followed her great-grandson to organize the Restoration Society in Japan. Her great-grandfather was one of the compilers of Chinese textbooks during the Republic of China period, proficient in 7 languages including Greek. Her grandfather was a well-known oil painter who had studied abroad in the former Soviet Union. Her father was a physics professor at a certain national defense university, her mother was a math lecturer at the same school, her uncle was a scholar in the humanities, and had written many popular science works in history. Her aunt and uncle were also university lecturers, a family of academic achievers. Compared to her glorious ancestors, she herself seemed very useless. After failing the college entrance examination, she went abroad to attend a decent university. Fortunately, her brain was still sufficient, and she pursued a bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degree. At the age of 25, she managed to secure a doctoral degree. What kind of national laboratory do the classmates around her choose to enter? She went to top universities to do research and development papers as a professor. She was the only one who had no interest in academics. Under the arrangement of her parents, she joined a large chemical enterprise as a social animal for 4 years. She has a smart mind, but she is too lazy and not ambitious. Not to mention how she leisurely strolled through the dungeon. The captured Japanese had been beaten to pieces and finally couldn't bear the punishment. They explained the location where their accomplices were hiding. The translator chattered with the Japanese and turned to ask for a map. The Japanese pointed to Zhangjia village in Yuping Town, Hiku County, and the adults in the interrogation room breathed a sigh of relief. Then, the translator spoke a few words to the Japanese and returned to the side of Governor Shen, clasping their fists to report. Sir, the Japanese said that the villagers in Zhangjia village are the ones responsible for helping them sell off the stolen goods and providing food supplies. Governor Shen was so angry that his graying beard almost curled up and he said angrily, "How unreasonable. Helping a foreign race kill one's own people is like a pig or a dog, a beast." Through careful planning and the cooperation of the naval garrison led by His Royal Highness Prince Su, the operation to eliminate Zhangjia village went extremely smoothly. Following the clues obtained from Zhangjia village, they successively dismantled several other Japanese pirate hiding in selling dens, as well as Japanese pirate settlements. For a while, the Japanese invasion along the coast of Guangdong subsided. Mr. Shen is a good boss, and coupled with Mr. Song being very kind, he never eats alone when he has money to earn. When he runs a chicken farm and chili sauce factory, he communicates with him and even asks Mrs. Shen if she wants to participate. Mr. Shen is very satisfied with Mr. Song, and he also has a heart to praise him. The Shen family is a prominent family in Lingnan, and his elderly family is a native of Lingnan. He is the largest in Guangdong, which is far away from the emperor, and stays very comfortable. At his age, he doesn't even want to be an official in the capital, but he needs someone in the capital. Song Si is a good candidate. So every time he invites the emperor for credit, Lord Shen never forgets to mention Song Si. So, Song Silang received the emperor's approval that, in the future, the emperor will become the backbone of the country. He happily held up his memorial and immediately knelt north, staying up for several nights. In the 12th month of the 27th year of Jingning, the servants of the Zhou Dynasty were busy and disorderly packing up their belongings, packing dozens of carts. It seemed that their master would never come back after returning to Beijing to report his duties. Song Qingyue lowered her head in her room and wrote and drew on a white paper, which read, Lime cement, rubber, coal mine, pu'er tea, oolong tea, cotton, steam engine, gas lamp, newspaper, pencil, pen, sugarcane sugar, making she looked down at the numerous entries she had written on the paper, and finally circled around 4 words. Rubber, lime cement, sugarcane sugar, and newspaper. She also marked simplified characters and pinyin next to the newspaper. Then, she scanned the words on the paper again, sighed heavily, crossed them all out casually, and threw the paper into the charcoal pot to burn. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Return to Beijing to report on work. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Return to Beijing to report on work. Fourth Master Song, who returned to Beijing, was proud. He felt that his contribution to potatoes and corn could not help but compete with those in. He doesn't think he is inferior to D. He has been a genius since he was young, and now God has rewarded him with the moon. Why should he make way for DG? Why? In his hometown of Jiangling, he was his father's illegitimate son, and his biological mother was an outsider. However, he still rose to fame through his own efforts, trampling on several legitimate brothers in his family to death. He felt that when he arrived in the capital, he could also take down the cousins and uncles of the legitimate branch, and at least none of the legitimate branch's peers could match him. When the servants of Song Mansion went to the South Pier to welcome him, they saw the large ship and the family members were obviously stunned. He didn't expect Song Si to bring so many things to the capital. Oh no, the carriage and servants carrying things are not enough. The foreign steward of Song Mansion quickly called for someone to go home and send some more people over. Upon hearing this, Li Gui, the chief steward of the Zhou Dynasty, immediately frowned and muttered to himself, "What does Song Si want? Do he think he can stay in the capital by offering some potatoes and corn? Beyond measure." So he immediately reported this matter to Mr. Song, who was sitting by his own pond fishing for koi. Before his retirement, Mr. Song served as the second assistant to the cabinet. However, due to health reasons, the emperor also appointed a virtual crown prince as a teacher to show his respect. The legitimate branch of the Song family in the capital is a well-established top-level family with a profound background. Among the descendants of the Song family, there are few who have passed the imperial examination, and those who only pass the imperial examination are embarrassed to say that if they are only scholars, they are basically illiterate in the Song family. The study of the Song family has been highly sought after by the aristocratic families in the capital. Any family with a weaker background wants to establish a Faraday relationship and send their children to the Song family for classes. So the Song clan school is no longer just a family private school, its scale is completely enough to be an academy. When Song Jianming first married the eldest daughter of the Minister of Personnel, he was only a superficial and impoverished illegitimate son of the Song family. The money in his pocket was only enough for him to dress decently, but he could never buy a decent house in the capital. The house was still purchased by the Liang family with their help. The father of Jiangling's hometown only subsidized 800 taels of silver, while the legitimate branch of the capital was even more generous than his own father. Mr. Song provided a subsidy of 5,000 taels of silver, which was not enough to even spend on decoration. Fortunately, Lord Liang, the attendant, loved his daughter. Liang's mother, who came from a noble background and was not short of money, spent nearly 80,000 taels of silver to purchase a not too large but very good location house for Song Si near the ancestral home of the Song family's legitimate branch. In order for her 3 legitimate sons to study in the Song family, Liang did not go to Lingnan with Song Jianming. She had not seen her husband for nearly 6 years, and her heart was both excited and a bit anxious. Song Jianming mentioned in his family letter about Chuanhe and Qiuyu getting pregnant and having a child together, and also wrote a letter to tell her about carrying Aunt He into the house. However, Song Jianming told her that he only accepted Aunt He because he was not familiar with his hometown when he first arrived in Guangzhou. The He family is a local wealthy businessman, and accepting Aunt He was just to quickly establish a foothold, and he also advised his wife not to be overly concerned. The heart of a husband lies with his wife, Song Jianming wrote in his letter. Fortunately, Song Qingyue didn't see this letter. If she did, she would surely curse her father with great unfiliality. Scumbag. Pua Master. This letter from home was read by Liang over and over again, and that sentence was read by her over and over again. In the past 6 years, she has shaken countless times, not knowing whether her decisions are right or wrong, but her mother and grandmother always comfort her. Women can only rely on their sons for the rest of their lives, and men cannot rely on them. Think about it, your sons are all from the Song family's school. How can those lowly offspring born in Lingnan compare to your son? Even if you follow Song Si to Lingnan, do you think you can really live a peaceful and beautiful life with him? Countless people have come to persuade her like this. Liang was conflicted, and lived these years with ease and ease. She had no father-in-law to serve, no sister-in-law or sister-in-law. In addition to her as the head lady, there was only one Lin aunt who gave birth to the second young lady, who was the niece of Song Si's stepmother. Song Si didn't like the Lin family at all, and had little affection for them. However, Song Si's stepmother had arranged for her to have a house and intimate maids, all of which were sent by her. The spring, summer, autumn, and winter that Song Si brought to Lingnan were all brought by the Liang family from her mother's family, and they were all easy to handle. On the other side, Auntie anxiously twisted a handkerchief in the carriage, and along the way, the handkerchief broke 2 pieces for her. When she was at the dock, she wanted to pull Song Si to ride with her in a carriage. Song Siju said, "All right, don't make a fuss, you ride with Qin Mama." How gentle his tone is, how cold and hard his heart is, how irresistible it is. He originally intended to take his 3 sisters, Song Qingyue, on a car ride together, but on second thought, he was afraid that his wife, Lady Liang, might see him pulling a stranger's daughter off the car and get irritated, which would make Song Qingyue unhappy in the future. He still wants to give Song San a legitimate daughter status. If such a big treasure were to marry too low, it would be a waste. He hopes that the Liang family can buy more dowry for Song Qingyue. If Song Qingyue knows her father's plan, she has to buckle a bowl of beef lamian noodles on his head and expect his mother to spend money to buy a dowry for his concubine's daughter. Is that what in her head? She can save her own dowry without asking anyone. Now she has nearly 1,000 taels of silver on hand from the chicken farm and chili sauce factory, and she will continue to receive about 500 taels of silver as dividends every year in the future. With this capital, how can she dispose of her dowry before getting married? In the carriage, Song Chunfei, the 5th brother who was 1 month younger than her, was sleeping soundly in Aunt Chiu's arms. Song Qingyue is not close to her birth mother Aunt Chun. She is not only illiterate, but also has a tendency towards depression. Song Qingyue originally didn't want to be so indifferent to Aunt Chun. After all, every time she fell ill and fell into a coma, Aunt Chun would do her best to take care of herself. But every time she stays with Aunt Chun, she treats her like an emotional trash can, babbling on negative emotions and all the worries. After multiple attempts to persuade her, Song Qingyue gives up decisively. Although she pitied her, Song Qingyue felt that if she really lived with Aunt Chun, she would have gone crazy. Moreover, Aunt Chun still spends her days spreading her half-understood Christian ideas to her atheist, with conflicting views and inability to communicate. She suggested to Mr. Song that she wanted a yard to live alone, but her handsome father agreed without even thinking about it. She sat next to Aunt Chun, and across from her was Aunt Chiu staring blankly at her. Originally, Auntie Chiu felt that having a son was always better than Chuanhe, who had given birth to a daughter. However, she didn't know how much 4th Lord liked the dead girl across from her. She had been angry for so many times, but now she was indifferent. But she just couldn't understand why 4th Lord valued the 3rd sister so much, more than the 5th brother, and even the Longfeng twins of Auntie He. She clearly remembered that when he learned that he had given birth to twins, the fourth master was extremely happy and even said it was an auspicious sign. He specially carved a small statue of he and a pair of children with peach wood and gave it to he, which moved he deeply at that time. But gradually, the master became less affectionate towards he and instead focused solely on spoiling the 3 girls born to Aunt Chun. Why? Why exactly is it? Song Qingyue was stared at by Aunt Xiu and felt uncomfortable. She turned around and lifted the curtain to look at the street view. It is said that the capital city is bustling, but this is a wealthy and privileged area with very few pedestrians on the streets. All of them are high walls and green tiles, and it is unknown how extravagant the gardens inside will be. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Song Silang's Career Aspiration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Song Silang's Career Aspiration. Song Mansion. The maid had already rushed into the main hall and said, "Madam, madam, the fourth master is back. The carriage has already entered the door." The eldest son Song Qinhai is 12 years old, the second son Song Qinshu is 10 years old, the eldest daughter Song Yaxin is 8 years old, and the fourth son Song Qinrui is 6 years old. These 4 are all legitimate descendants. In fact, there was a third prince before the fourth prince, who was also the legitimate son of the Liang family. Unfortunately, he gave birth prematurely and died shortly after being born. Among the children who stayed in the capital, only one 7-year-old second daughter, Song Yushi, was born to Aunt Lin. From the age of the child, it can be seen that during those years in the capital, Song Sai was extremely fond of the Liang family. Except for his childhood and the first 3 months of pregnancy, Song Sai almost rested in the main house. Liang's health was good, and the children were born one after another. In recent years, she has almost survived by reminiscing about the past tenderness and sweetness with Song Sai over and over again. "I heard that my father is coming back," and the children returned home early. Liang dressed up all morning, and even now her hands are still trembling slightly, leading the children to welcome her husband home at the hanging flower gate. At this moment, a figure of Qin Chang appeared at the end of the corridor. He was wearing a round-necked, large-sleeved shirt with a pigeon-gray fine cotton cloth surface, coming in style, just like what he had seen before. He was slender and straight, elegant and handsome. Liang's tears immediately fell down, and Song Jianming saw it. He quickly took a few steps forward and hugged Liang into his arms. Mrs. Su, the nursing mother behind Mrs. Liang, was extremely satisfied when she saw her. A smile appeared on her lips, and she thought to herself that the heavens have eyes. Uncle is a good person who has not let down the friendship of her own young lady. She also made the lady and the old man of the Liang family feel relieved. The 3 aunts followed suit, and Chuanhe and Qiuyu were originally the children of the Liang family. The family's wealth and lives were in the hands of their wives, and it was not necessarily a bad thing for them to be favored by their wives. As long as they were obedient, the Liang family, who came from all backgrounds, would not mistreat them. Seeing this scene, I only felt numb in my heart. Only he was feeling uneasy in his heart. "Alright, this big person has given birth to so many children, why are you so unstable like a newly married little girl?" Although it was a rebuke, his tone was extremely indulgent, and the tenderness in Song's eyes was almost overflowing. He reached out to help Liang wipe her tears, bent down and bit Liang's ear, whispering, "The children are all watching." Liang blushed with embarrassment and lightly tapped her husband's chest. Her heart's excitement could fly out and jump on the beam of the house. Song Si was in a good mood. As long as he thought about the spring festival, he would be able to stay in the capital. With his talent and the support of his father-in-law and the Ministry of Personnel, he rose to the top of the sky and entered the cabinet to worship his appearance, as if it were something for tomorrow, easily obtainable. He walked into the main hall holding onto Liang's waist. He held a pair of children's small hands, and the sourness inside made her feel nauseous. Song Qinyue turned her head to look at He Shi's pale face, cleared her throat, and whispered with concern, "Is Auntie okay? No nauseous?" He really spat out, letting go of her children's hands and rushing to the railing, vomiting uncontrollably at the flowers outside the corridor. Auntie Chiu took a step forward, but after some thought, she recoiled her steps. She thought to herself that in the future, she would have to rely on her wife's breathing to make a living in this family. Why be polite to this surname He? Being polite to her will make Madame feel at ease. In fact, she has long been dissatisfied with Aunt He. They are all concubines, who can be more noble than whom? Why does she always have a superior attitude that is really annoying? Qin Mama, who was by Aunt He's side, rushed up and said with heartache, "Hey, what's wrong with our aunt?" But suddenly a light flashed in her mind. Is it difficult? But she clearly remembered that Song Jianming stopped stepping into the backyard half a year ago. At that time, they suspected that Yi had a new love outside. However, the servants at home said that Yi would tutor the children's homework every night after he left the yamen. Afterwards, he might stay in the third Mrs. courtyard for a while, just to set up a small stove and assign more homework for her. Afterwards, Yi would return to the study room to sleep alone, like a monk with few desires. Qin Mama's eyes were full of suspicion, while on the other side, Su Mama, who was beside Liang, stared fiercely at He Shi, who was supporting the pillar and retching. Seeing the pair of dragon and phoenix twins, Su Mama felt extremely uncomfortable. He waved his hand to Qin Mama, and it had been 6 months since Fourth Lord stepped into her bedroom. Even if she wanted to have children, who would she have children with? As for the current retching, it is purely due to the fatigue of the past few days of traveling and being stimulated by the scene just now. It is said that a wife is not as good as a concubine, and a concubine is not as good as a thief. The He family is a whole round younger than the Liang family, and coupled with the fact that the Liang family has given birth to 5 children in a row, giving birth is extremely damaging to their vitality. The Liang family's face has long lost its freshness and has become somewhat old. Nowadays, her beauty is far inferior to that of the He family. However, why did Song Fourth Lord see his wife as if he could not see anyone else at all? When she was first brought into the Song Dynasty mansion in Guangzhou, the Fourth Lord was also extremely gentle and considerate towards her. Why is it now that he doesn't even bother to give her a glance? How did he know that Song Si didn't set foot in the backyard 6 months in advance because he was afraid that when he returned to the capital, some concubine with a big belly would make Liang feel uncomfortable and make the Liang family dissatisfied? His father-in-law is a minister of the Ministry of Personnel, and the Minister of Personnel, Mr. Wang, is already very old. It is uncertain when his father-in-law will be able to go further. This is about his future. Spring and autumn aunties entered the main hall and kowtowed to Madame with low brows and eyes. His face was full of vegetable color, supported by Qin Mama. When they entered the main hall, they saw Chuanhe and Chuyu kowtowing to Madame. It was not a problem for her to stand, and she knelt down with grievances. Song Jianming seemed to be unable to see them. Even though there was a coffee table between him and Liang, he held her hand and turned his head to look at Liang. After a long time, he turned his head and said coldly to the 3 concubines, "Let's serve tea to Madame one by one." Liang was held by her husband's hand and held on. She pursed her lips and smiled, slightly lowering her head to cover her blush with a handkerchief. Song Qinyue saw her cheap father's demeanor and knew what he was thinking. She really wanted to give her father a thumbs up, good acting skills. But if he really cares about Liang, he should take her with him. Can't he teach a few dolls as a flower scout? If he really cared about Liang, he wouldn't even sleep with other women. This is clearly a play for the Liang family. However, if Song Si could do this for a lifetime, it would actually be quite good. It's better than those foolish individuals who make their wives disappear. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Model Farmers and New Compilation of Agricultural Books. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 7 Model Farmers and New Compilation of Agricultural Books. After the 3 aunts and 4 illegitimate children paid their respects to their mistress, Song Sai waved them down and arranged a courtyard for everyone with Mrs. Su beside her. And he is a good concubine and has given birth to a pair of twins for Song Sai. Although Mrs. Su doesn't like Aunt He, she will definitely show her face and arrange her in Nanxiang Pavilion. Except for the courtyard, which is far from the main room and front yard, everything else is excellent. However, Aunt Chun and Aunt Xiu were still slaves and were concubines, so Su's mother arranged for them to stay in Suizhu Garden, which was quite close to the main house, but the place was cramped, which was slightly better than the place where the maidservants lived. Song was all the confidence of Song Sai. He glanced at Song Qingyue, who had no expression on her face, and followed Aunt Chun back to the house. Feeling a little headache, she touched her nose and quietly turned around to leave. Since he had not spoken, he was not good at making any decisions. He would probably wait a few days for any arrangements to be made. After the 4th master of the Song family settled down, the Liang family waited on him to take a bath and change clothes, and then took his 4 legitimate children to the first branch of the Song family to meet the old man and the old lady. And he heard that Song Sai only led his wife and 4 legitimate children to visit the Song family's legitimate branch, and she became anxious. She was already feeling unwell, and with a pale expression, she grabbed Qin Mama's hand and asked, "But Chen Xing is also the son of the master. He can't do it, and even illegitimate children don't care, can he?" Qin Mama comfortingly patted Aunt He on the back of her hand and said, "I believe our master will make arrangements. Aunt, don't worry. How can we not be in a hurry? Chen Xing is also at the age of enlightenment. Before coming, my mother specially sent someone to remind me that if I enter Beijing, I will try my best to arrange for Chen Xing to study in the Song family. When it comes to money, why don't we lack it? If we can cultivate Chen Xing, we can also help his grandfather in the future." Qin Mama couldn't get in touch with these things. She was familiar with the internal conflicts, but she didn't understand the affairs of the men in the outer courtyard. The rules of southern merchants were not as strict, and the gender imbalance was not as strict as in the capital. This matter was indeed worrying. Mrs. He was willing to give her legitimate daughter to Song Sai as a concubine because of the Song family's wealth. It was extremely difficult for a Lingnan merchant to cultivate an outstanding scholar. Whoever could produce a scholar in their family would be highly respected. Before Aunt He got married, she had a cousin who was not confused about his age and passed the imperial examination. The whole family, separated by 3 or 4 generations of elders, bestowed a great red seal on the master of the imperial examination. From the previous dynasty to the present, the He family in Guangdong has not even received a jinshi. It's not like the Song family. When she first married Song Sai, and he was surprised that the servants around Song Sai, as well as the housekeeper in the backyard, could write and calculate. Hey! With a sigh, and he asked Qin Mama to serve her and rest. She had a severe headache and her stomach was extremely uncomfortable. Qin Mama saw this and wanted to go out to find a doctor to show Aunt He, but was stopped by Aunt He. She looked at Qin Mama and shook her head, panting for a while before saying, "Let's talk about it when the master comes back." Qin Mama immediately understood, but couldn't help feeling aggrieved for her own girl and her eyes turned red. She watched He Shiner grow up, and she was also the legitimate young lady of the He family. How could she be so careful when she became a concubine in the Song family? The master and servant had a very good plan, and this trick was tried repeatedly in Guangzhou. Whenever she was feeling unwell, Song Sai would come to see it himself no matter how busy he was. However, the people on Madam's side are not vegetarians either. Not long after Aunt He lay down, Madame Su's mother brought the doctor over. This doctor is a resident doctor supported by the Song family. His medical skill is not very good, but he is quick and can respond to emergencies. "What's wrong with Aunt He? I just noticed her complexion was not good in the hall." Madam specifically instructed me to help her invite a doctor to come and take a look. Qin Mama said in a guest's voice, Madam Lao, you've taken a lot of trouble. Facing Qin Mama, Su Mama straightened her back and slightly raised her chin, smiling, yes, after all, Madam is the head of this family. It is Madam's responsibility to take care of the housewives after taking care of them. This is declaring sovereignty and warning. Qin Mama suppressed her resentment and bowed to Su Mama, thanking her again, thank you, Madam, for taking care of my aunt. Dr. Ma finished his pulse and shook his head slightly towards Mrs. Su, finally letting go of her heart that she was carrying. Then Dr. Ma prescribed a pair of calming and invigorating medicines and said to Qin Mama, Auntie is tired from the journey, and coupled with some discomfort with the local environment, it's better to rest more during this period. In addition, the diet should be light. The north is not wetter than the south, so drinking more water is also good. Thank you very much, Doctor. Auntie thanked through the gauze curtain. Dr. Ma waved his hand and followed Mrs. Su out. Su's mother sent her back to the legitimate branch of the Song family, gave her 10 taels of purse, thanked the steward of the Song family over there, and also gave her 2 taels of silver. The stewardess of the legitimate branch of the Song family knew that Song Si was not well off and did not care about the amount of silver. The two families were originally close relatives, and Song Si was also a promising person. She was only about 32 years old and had been working in the 4th-rank position for 6 years. She had previously made achievements in Lingnan, and her future was limitless. In the east room of Kuyukshuan, Song Qinyue took out a homemade oil lamp with 5 lamp holders. Each lamp holder had a small oil storage tank at the bottom, with a cotton core exposed and a glass windshield on top. The most important thing was that Song Qinyue added a white porcelain reflective lampshade, which was several times brighter than ordinary oil lamps and candles when reading at night. With brightness, it doesn't require much effort for the eyes, otherwise reading with the original brightness of the candle oil lamp would make the eyes blind. This oil lamp was designed by Song Qinyue, and Song Sai spent some money to find a craftsman to customize it. During the production, a total of 5 were made, including one by Song Qinyue, one by Song Sai himself, and 3 that he planned to give as gifts. This lamp is not too expensive, but it is also not cheap. Glass alone is quite rare. After all, the raw materials for making glass are all shipped from overseas, and the entire Guangdong province can only find 1 or 2 craftsmen who can burn glass. At present, the quality of glass is still very poor and the transparency is not high. Chinese people probably prefer porcelain more. However, Song Qinyue did not think so. Glass is still an essential part of modern scientific development. Only with glass can there be lenses, telescopes, and microscopes. Art theory during the Renaissance should also be closely related to the existence of glass. I don't know where to start if I really want to run a glass factory. She propped her head up and thought for a while, as if remembering where she had seen it before. The ancient Egyptians had already been able to burn glass, which was very popular in Europe and Persia. It would be great if you could inquire with the caravan on the northwest front line. She made up her mind and started reading again, searching for the Chinese characters she hadn't included in the traditional and simplified comparison table. She doesn't know what this thing is really useful for. At this stage, it's just to pass the boredom. Without a mobile phone or TV, she always needs to find something to do for herself. Aunt Chun sat by the bed embroidering flowers. She had already yawned several times, but Song Qinyue didn't sleep, and she didn't want to sleep either. She just wanted to be with her. After a while, she couldn't sit still. She went to make a pot of light tea for Song Qinyue. Later, she went out to find the stewardess to get some dim sum for Song Qinyue. Auntie, don't be busy. Song Qinyue finally put down her book without any disturbance. Otherwise, I'll teach Auntie how to read. Recognizing characters. Chuanhe shook his head repeatedly. No, I can't recognize characters. Besides, women recognize so many characters. What's the use of reading so many books? But when will you start learning needlework? Never mind, Song Qinyue gave up and only said one sentence. Only when I study hard can Song be happy. Chuanhe was taken aback for a moment, as if sensing his daughter's dissatisfaction with him. His tone became cautious and aggrieved, and he said, "Fourth Lord hasn't come to see me for a long time." Seeing Song Qinyue completely ignoring him, he began to sigh and say, "I am in dire straits. I was sold as a servant by my father since I was young. This is my fate. The master didn't even have time to care about his wife, and I was just a commoner. I shouldn't have any delusions." I'm starting to recite fragmented thoughts again. Chuanhe is not very old. When she followed Song Si to Lingnan, she was only 17 years old, and now she is only 20.3. In addition, she was probably malnourished from a young age and has a very tender face. Song Qinyue lived until 20.9 in her previous life. After graduating from her doctoral degree, she also worked as a social animal for 4 years. Seeing that Aunt Chun has a completely older sister's attitude towards her younger sister, she cannot be regarded as the mother who raised herself. No matter what, she couldn't adjust her mindset into a true 6-year-old doll. In her heart, she still felt like an outsider, watching the joys and sorrows of those around her with cold eyes. Song Si likes women who can read and read. Song Qinyue suggested. Chuanhe's chatter was suddenly interrupted by Song Qinyue. She looked at her 6-year-old daughter with a cold and indifferent expression in her eyes, and her heart began to ache again. Her eyes turned red and she choked up, saying, "But I'm just a housemaid. Madam and Miss only study. How can we study? Ah. Stubborn like this, not to be taught, forget it." Compared to the concubines in the backyard, Song Qinyue is more emotionally inclined towards the wife of the main family, and she even sympathizes more with the Liang family. "I'll just forget about the concubines sharing rooms, let's not mention it." She still managed to share rooms herself. The legitimate branch mansion of the Song family. After visiting the old lady, as well as several aunts, sister-in-law, and younger siblings, Song Si had dinner with the men of the Song family. After the meal, he was called to the study by Grand Tutor Song to talk for a long time, and the Grand Uncle, who was the third-rank right deputy censor, was also called to speak in front of Grand Tutor Song. After coming out of Grand Tutor Song's study, Song Si's face remained tense. As soon as he left the door of the Song mansion, he finally couldn't hold his tension and his face turned grim. Liang looked at him with concern, wanting to open her mouth to comfort him but not knowing where to start. "I thought I could have a good time with my husband tonight, but Song Si didn't feel this kind of warmth at all. He asked Su Mama to serve his wife well, while he spent half the night sitting in the study. Song Quan was guarding outside the study room, worried about his own grandfather and also worried about his discomfort and injustice. The next morning, Song Si took the Liang family to visit his father-in-law at the Liang mansion. As soon as he left, the Song family sent someone to post a message to the Liang family, inviting the Liang attendant to come over for a talk. They were too lazy to do the play and didn't even avoid Song Jianming. Song was sinking like water on all sides. After climbing onto the carriage, he sat quietly for a long time. The coachman and Song didn't get any instructions for a long time. They whispered, "Sir, are we going back to our mansion?" "Well, go back to the mansion." "Song Quan, go to the Sun Shangshu mansion of the Ministry of Revenue and pass me the account card. I want to pay my respects to Lord Sunday." 3 more days later, the emperor announced that Song Jianming had entered the palace to report his work, and several high-ranking officials from the cabinet were also present. This time, I mainly wanted to inquire about the coastal Japanese invasion. Currently, the court is debating whether to ban the sea. Regarding this matter, Song Jianming was already prepared. He handed a booklet to the eunuch next to the emperor and respectfully said, "This booklet is also the one that Governor Shen hopes to present to His Majesty." The emperor opened the booklet, and the more he looked at it, the brighter his eyes became. The booklet mainly contained a series of statistical data, including the population of Guangdong, the area of cultivated land, how many acres were mountainous, and how many acres were flat and fertile fields. In addition, it included the number of fishermen who made a living by fishing, the annual trade volume of sea goods between Guangdong and several other provinces, as well as the cargo throughput and trade volume of several major ports in Guangdong. When looking at the total amount of annual sea freight trade tariffs and commercial taxes in Guangdong province, the emperor, who had already leaned towards implementing a sea ban policy, hesitated again. The pressure on military affairs in the north has increased, the national treasury is empty, and the warehouse of the Ministry of Revenue is so empty that it can run mice. He originally thought that Lingnan was a remote area, and its importance was not worth mentioning compared to Jiangnan. However, he did not expect that Guangdong province alone has so much tax revenue every year. Why didn't anyone tell him? He looked around the 7 cabinet ministers, and suddenly felt a surge of anger in his heart. However, the emperor remained silent and gently closed the booklet, saying, "Call Sun Weiman to come and see me." The 6 departments yamen were not far from the cabinet, and in half a cup of tea, the Minister of Revenue, Sun Weiman, accompanied 2 courtiers and 4 main officials panting along with the inner attendants. Mr. Sun is in his 50s this year and has been well maintained. His beard and hair are still completely black, and he doesn't look that old. I kowtow to your majesty. Sun Aiqing, there's no need to be polite. I called you over today because I want to see the tax situation in Guangdong, Fujian, and Zhejiang provinces. Sun Weiman knew that Song Si had arrived today, and he had already prepared the information for Guangdong province. He immediately handed it over and asked, "I will send someone back to find the account books for Fujian and Zhejiang." The emperor lowered his head and flipped through the account book, waving his hand to signal that he should go quickly. The account book presented by Sun Weiman is from 10 years ago, and it is evident that during Song Jianming's 6-year tenure in Guangzhou, the tax revenue of one prefecture in Guangzhou has significantly increased year by year. This year, the tax revenue is actually 40% higher than when he first went to Guangzhou. This is Ningqian. Next, the emperor asked Song Jianming for a long time, and he explained how he personally grew corn, raised chickens, and raised pigs. With more chickens and pigs, there would be more chicken and pig manure, which could be used to fertilize the fields and help crops grow better. Song Jianming also summoned those planting experts to the government, and each person was rewarded with a sum of silver and a banner of model farmers, allowing them to follow the government to promote their planting experience in the countryside. In the future, when electing village and neighborhood chiefs, priority was given to model farmers. In addition, he also organized manpower to rewrite the Qimin Yao Shu of the 5 dynasties and the Si Shi Zhao Yao of the late Tang dynasty, using the commonly used colloquial vernacular of the people of the Zhou Dynasty. He recorded the advanced agricultural techniques and new variety planting methods of the Zhou Dynasty and wrote a set of Lingnan Bian. Because most of the planting experiences recorded in the book were applicable to the seasons and soil conditions of the Lingnan region, the 3 words, Lingnan Bian, were added to the title of the book. After the compilation, Lord Song paid for printing hundreds of books and distributed them to the villages and farms under his jurisdiction. Of course, these are all ideas inspired by my precious daughter Song Qingyue. The emperor flipped through the book Lingnan Compilation of the Essential Techniques of Agriculture in the Great Zhou Dynasty, written in the vernacular of the people of the Great Zhou Dynasty, and praised it greatly. When he heard that the banners and silver rewards were actually paid by Lord Song himself to the farmers, the emperor was almost moved to tears. He immediately asked eunuch Yin to call a few people from the Hanlin Academy to come over. Since there was Lingnan Compilation of the Essential Techniques of Agriculture, there should also be Jiangnan Compilation, South China Compilation, Northwest Compilation, and Northeast Compilation. Ah, does the Bashu region also need a separate edition? Compiling books, even if they are agricultural books, this is something that has benefited the present and the future. The emperor glanced at the officials sitting there and suddenly felt in his heart that the court had spent so much salary raising a group of useless corpses and vegetarian food. He really wanted to take off all their black hats. Why hasn't anyone thought of such a brilliant idea in all these years? Why can't there be more capable officials like Song Jianming who are practical? However, several senior officials in the cabinet looked deeply at Song Si, especially those who supported the Si ban, almost wanting to slap Song Jianming to death. A little fly that doesn't know what to call, it's simply beyond its capacity. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Celebrating the New Year. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Celebrating the New Year. On that day, when Song Jianming returned from the palace to his mansion, a servant sent a post from the Minister of Revenue, Sun, inviting him to go to the hot spring villa in the suburbs of Beijing for tea in 2 days. Song Si paced back and forth at home, knowing that rewarding farmers out of his own pocket touched the emperor, and he had hope. What if Mr. Song speaks? Song Si refused to give up until the last moment. Politics is nothing more than an exchange of interests. Even if Mr. Sun asks him to go there, it's not just about drinking tea. He carefully ponders what tricks he will have and the chips in his hand. When it comes to leverage, he really has it. In the first 2 years of arriving in Guangzhou, in order to establish a foothold and make several wealthy business families obedient, he used some small tricks that could not be brought to the forefront, but at the same time, he also helped several wealthy families in Guangzhou settle several cases. If you want to investigate, it's not entirely impossible to find out, but this kind of thing can be big or small, whether the person who looks up is willing to turn a blind eye. Sure enough, at Sun's hot spring villa, he also met the Minister of Justice Huang and the Grand Censor of the Imperial Censorate, Qiu. He is a junior with a low official position, so his posture is extremely low. In fact, when he saw Lord Qiu, his hands were trembling slightly with excitement. This is the head of the Song family's uncle. Song Si lowered his eyebrows and offered the purple cicada tea from Huyuan, boasting about the benefits from medical books and personally brewing tea for several elderly people. As purple cicada tea is not a tribute tea, it is the first time that several elderly people have tasted this type of tea. After trying it out, they found that its taste is indeed very unique. The tea soup is golden, with a sweet and mellow taste, without any astringency. The fine taste, as well as a special honey aroma. After a while of rambling, Song Si saw that everyone's biggest concern was still the problem of Japanese invasion. On this issue, Song Jianming definitely wants to fight for it. The benefits of sea trade are really tempting. If a sea ban is implemented, the entire Lingnan region will be pushed back to its backward and impoverished appearance. So when it comes to the issue of Japanese pirates, Song Si avoided the heavy and talked about them as small-scale water bandits and mountain bandits, as if they were flies that could be immediately killed with just a finger from the court. Throughout the new year, Song Si lived in a state of anxiety and unease. Apart from the main room, he rested alone in his study and occasionally called his sons over to teach them their homework. Liang, on the other hand, beamed and smiled. Her husband's affection for her remained the same, so his attitude towards several concubines was also pleasant. On the day of Xiaonian, Liang called everyone to the main hall to make dumplings, cut window decorations, and write spring festival couplets. Song Si's regular script is written in a relaxed and grand style, which must be hung at the entrance and main hall. The young master Song Qinhai is 12 years old this year and has already passed the Tongxing exam. His knowledge is also down to earth, and every word and action has the demeanor of a wealthy young master. Song Qingyue leaned over and stared at Song Qinhai's words, praising him repeatedly. He is still a 6th grade elementary school student. Take a look at the handwriting of Song Qinxiu, the second brother. Compared to the eldest brother, it's not even more impressive. Is a fourth-grade elementary school student so talented? Mom, ancient children are really amazing. He is the son of the 19-year-old Tanhualang, and his genes are truly of high quality. Song Qinshu saw his new sister staring at him with bright eyes, clearing her throat, and asked, "What's wrong? Can the third sister recognize words?" Song Qinyue nodded, lifted her face, and exaggerated her praise, saying, "Big brother and second brother are so amazing. This handwriting is really good. How long do you need to practice in a day to reach this level?" "Ah. It's not that good either. I'm far behind my father." Song Qinshu blushed with praise and asked, "Isn't third sister going to make dumplings and make dumplings?" Song Qinyue said confidently and naturally, "I don't know. Well, the dumplings I made are very ugly." Song Qinshu smiled and said, "Just pack more." Song Sai noticed that Song Qinyue was talking to her eldest and second brothers. The siblings got along very well and he was satisfied. He walked over with his hands behind his back and looked down at the New Year couplets written by Song Qinhai and Song Qinshu. He nodded somewhat satisfied and picked up a thinner brush, dipped it in ink, and handed it to Song Qinyue. "You also wrote a pair." Everyone looked over in surprise, especially the second brother Song Qinshu and the eldest sister Song Yashin, and the third sister who was only 6 years old and could write couplets. Song Qinrui, the fourth brother, is only over 5 months older than his third sister. He also makes a fuss all day because of writing big characters and gets slapped in the palm every day. Song Qinyue does not hesitate. In her past life, she also came from a well-established family of scholars. She started practicing calligraphy at the age of 4, learned ballet at the age of 5, added a guzheng in 2nd grade, and learned sketching from her grandfather in middle school. In addition to these, she also learned math, English, and computer science. In short, she did not have much rest and play in her childhood, either in class or on the way. Stop talking, talking too much is like tears. Calligraphy has been a hobby that she persisted in until after work, but she is not as hardworking as Song Qinhai and Song Qinshu children. Whenever she thinks about it, she just writes. Moreover, her body is very weak now, and her wrist is weak and weak. It's okay to write to scare lay people, and she's only 6 years old now, so she shouldn't have written too well. The servant came over and exchanged 2 small red papers. Song Qin wrote in a standardized manner, "Smooth sailing every year, good luck every step." The horizontal inscription read, "Auspicious stars shine brightly." When Song Sai saw her finish writing, he grinned wide open. This was the first time in these days that he had laughed so happily. He picked her up and even took a sip of incense on the face of the baby doll, saying, "Our moon is amazing." "Well, okay." Song Qinyue tilted her head in disgust and dodged, not wanting to be kissed by her cheap father at all. Song Sai found it even more interesting to see his daughter's disdainful little eyes. This child has always been like this, treating everyone with a nonchalant and mature demeanor. However, Song Qinyue has completely inherited Song Sai's beauty and is extremely beautiful. No matter how he looks at it, he finds it cute, and all kinds of small expressions are even more interesting. "Why, do you still dislike your own father?" Song Sai stared. "No, men and women are not compatible," Song Qinyue said helplessly. "Puff. Ha ha ha, who taught you? You little devil, how old are you? You know that men and women are not compatible." Song Sai couldn't stop laughing, and the whole room was amused by Song Qinyue. Such a small girl, she's a big little ghost. Miss Song Yashin looked at her father holding her third sister and laughing with envy and jealousy. She glanced at her mother and Liang encouraged her, whispering, "Go ahead, that's your father." When Song Sai left the capital, Song Yashin was only 2 years old, and even before Song Sai returned, she didn't know what his father looked like. She shyly approached Song Sai, wanting to speak, but didn't know what to say. Upon seeing the gaze of Song Yashin's little friend Baba, Song Qinyue immediately struggled with her short legs to leave Song Sai's arms. Song Sai let go of her hand with great regret and lowered her head to touch the head of her eldest daughter. The little girl's helpless expression was heartbreaking. "Dad, look at it. It's already grown so big in the blink of an eye," Song Sai smiled. "How old are we, Yashin, this year?" "Dad, my daughter is 8 years old this year." "What book did you read?" I have read both The Women's Ring and Internal Training. Besides that, Song Sai was an open-minded person, and he didn't think that a woman without talent was virtuous at all. He himself liked women who read a lot, at least those who could be talked to. For example, the Liang family satisfied him more than his concubine who had a whole house. Apart from doing that, he could at least speak up and tell him some news about the capital over the years, as well as gossip about various families. These were all important to him. Song Yashin glanced at her mother, and Liang nodded in encouragement. She blushed and said, "My daughter likes the Book of Songs. She has read 300 Tang poems and song lyrics, and has even memorized a few Han poems. Is that right? Xaner likes poetry, songs, and prose." Song Yashin nodded very solemnly, and the speed of her nodding was also exquisite. She nodded, and the 2 jade bead earrings in her ears were basically not swaying. Song Qinyue secretly praised in her heart, thinking of the ancient travel literature she had read before. They all said that these young ladies seemed to be carved from the same mold, which made all the men, the first, second, third, and fourth feel not very interesting. The clever and lively travel women always made them feel special and moved. But Song Qinyue thinks that this elegant demeanor trained from a young age is really beautiful. "What is the third younger sister staring at me for?" Song Yashin wore a dress full of satin with a red background woven with gold, a pure white rabbit fur scarf around her neck, a set of ruby hairpins on her head, and a pigeon blood stone bracelet on her wrist, which was very festive and prosperous. Compared to her elder sister, although the material of the clothes on Song Qinyue's body is relatively good, after all, it was given by Lady Liang. However, she does not have such valuable headgear. Who would have said that Song Fourth Master is shy and lacks a deep foundation? Sister Song Yashin's jewelry is all a dowry of the Liang family, and many gemstones have been passed down from generation to generation. It is impossible to distribute these things to illegitimate sons and daughters. Song Yashin thought that her third sister liked her jewelry. For example, Song Yushi, the second sister born to Aunt Lin, often complained to Aunt Lin privately because her jewelry was not as good as her eldest sister's. She felt a little embarrassed as she touched her pigeon blood stone bracelet and said, "Third sister, these are all my mother's dowries, and it's not easy to give them away." Song Qinyue is a bit speechless. Is she someone with such shallow eyelids? She waved her hand and said, "I'm not envious of my sister's attire, but it's only when I met her that I realized what a true lady of a great family is. Her every move, every gesture, and every word and gesture are pleasing to the eye. I believe even if she only wears a burlap bag, she can still make people see at a glance that she is a lady of a great family." Song Yashin was praised by Song Qinyue and her eyes widened. She looked down at her, her ears and cheeks flushed. After a while, she shyly smiled and said, "Third sister really knows how to talk." "I mean it from the bottom of my heart," said Song Qinyue. Song Yashin runs back to Liang's side, hugs her mother, whispers in her ear for a while, and Liang also smiles, takes Song Yashin's hand, and says slightly sourly, "No wonder your father likes her. She is smart. In that case, you should be more close to your third sister, and your father will be happy when he sees her. There are few little sisters in the mansion, and I think your third sister is very sensible." Song Yashin nodded obediently and said, "My daughter saved it." Liang waved to Song Qinyue and called her over to speak. She grabbed the slender wrist of the little girl and realized that she was almost as thin as a skeleton. She frowned and asked, "Why are you so thin? Didn't Aunt Chun take care of you?" Song Qinyue immediately shook her head and said, "My daughter was born prematurely and was weak from birth. She was sick for almost the first 3 years, and it was thanks to my aunt's careful care that she survived." "Oh, sorry to see you." Liang sighed and looked at Song Qinyue's double bun, which was only tied with colorful ribbons. After thinking for a moment, she said to Su's mother, "Bring those pairs of emerald butterfly clips for the Chinese New Year. How can we deal with them without any decent jewelry? After all, they are also our fourth master's children." "Thank you very much, mother." Song Qinyue expressed her gratitude generously, with a calm expression, without too much pride or flattery. Liang was secretly surprised that this child was really amazing. He was so young, and his composure was probably inferior to that of Yashin. She looked up at Chunhe, who was dull and timid, with doubts in her eyes. Song Qinyue said, "I'm not in good health and I'm afraid I'll pass on my illness to my aunt. When I was in Guangzhou Prefecture, I lived alone." "So it's like this, where's the nanny next to you?" Liang asked again. "It's Grandma Dou, but she's a bit old and her children are all in Guangzhou. She didn't come to the capital with us this time," Song Qinyue replied. "In Guangzhou Prefecture, can fourth master ask Mr. Shi for your advice?" Liang continued. "Yes, my father hired a scholar to teach us how to read, but most of the time that gentleman only helps us review, and it is mostly my father who personally teaches us." "No wonder." Liang's hand clenched into a fist again, and she could see that the fourth lord was not close to the children she had given birth to, and the children seemed unfamiliar with her father. "Hey, what should I do?" She asked about the situation in Guangzhou Prefecture again and found that there was indeed a lack of talented gentlemen and good academies there. She also felt the restlessness of fourth master Song these days, especially the Song family's direct branch, who actually had a clear attitude and opposed the fourth master's stay in Beijing. Liang certainly hopes that her husband can stay, but she also has to figure out how to go in the future. The registered residents of the 3 legitimate sons are all in the capital, so it is necessary to participate in the imperial examination in the capital in the future. The Lingnan area has developed commerce and a weak literary style. If you want to take the imperial examination route, you can only stay in the capital. She's really afraid of being separated from her husband for many more years. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Adversarial Luck. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Adversarial Luck. Liang is the eldest daughter carefully cultivated by the Liang family, with a brain and a wrist. Coupled with the affection and respect shown by Song Sai to her, Liang, as the head of the family, can be particularly generous and kind. After the first day of the Lunar New Year, Liang instructed her servants to prepare a small courtyard for Song Qinyue according to the treatment of Guangzhou Prefecture, and sent a nanny and 2 small maids to serve. Under the guidance of her mother, Song Yashin often went to talk to her third sister. Song Qinyue discovered that Song Yashin was not very young and was very good at being a teacher. She just casually praised her, saying, "I heard my sister is good at poetry." The little girl then continued to talk for 2 hours, hammering and pounding away at her poetry. Not to mention, although this little girl is only 8 years old, she has a lot of ink in her belly. Although her speech lacks logic and organization, and she speaks wherever she thinks, there are still many things that Song Qinyue herself does not know, especially the Book of Songs. When she was in Guangzhou Prefecture, Song Sai liked to tell children about records of the Grand Historian and Mencius. Occasionally, when opening a small stove for Song Qinyue, she would involve some things such as Ziji Tongjian and Spring and Autumn's Weizhuan. The knowledge of being a top-ranked scholar is really impressive. It's interesting and profound. Song Qinyue really enjoys listening to his handsome father's lectures. When Song Sai saw his students listening attentively, he also spoke enthusiastically. In short, giving lectures to Song Qinyue made him feel extremely satisfied. In the evening, Song Yashin leaned in his wife's arms and whispered, "Mother, third sister is really amazing. She can recite the long parallel prose of Preface to the Tinwang Pavilion and Ode to the Afang Palace, word by word. She's only 6 years old." Liang sighed and said, "That was taught by your father himself, of course it's impressive." "Really? When I was in Guangzhou Prefecture, did my dad personally teach my third sister?" Mother. Song Yashin held her mother's arm and acted coquettishly, "My daughter also wants to listen to her father's lecture." "Okay, you can talk to your third sister about it. In the future, when your father teaches to your third sister, you can listen together." However, Song Sai has been so busy these days that he has not touched the ground and has had a lot of socializing. The Minister of Revenue, Sun, also likes to ask him to talk and has recommended many of his old acquaintances to him. Song Sai is a capable and hard-working person, and it seems that Lord Sun greatly appreciates him. Song Sai also knew that Lord Sun wanted to bring himself under his command. He asked Sun, "Sir, there is something unknown about the student, the cabinet, but there will be a personnel change." Mr. Sun laughed. Song Si's political sensitivity is still very high. He leaned over and whispered, "Last year was a dry year, and the northern border defense was struggling." Song Si was taken aback and asked, "What does the Holy One mean?" Sun lowered his voice even lower and said, "Your Majesty, you have achieved great success. Is this the meaning of main battle?" However, as far as Song Si knows, the Crown Prince is in charge of peace. Is it possible that he is also related to the Eastern Palace? That night, Song Si couldn't sleep anymore. The emperor was in full swing, and those princes below couldn't sit still anymore. What faction is Mr. Sun from? He won't get himself involved, will he? With Empress Su present, these people don't think they have a chance to change the owner of the East Palace, do they? Empress Su and His Majesty are a young couple. The Su family also made great contributions when His Majesty seized the throne that year. Empress Su's biological brother was also conferred the hereditary title of Duke of Wei by His Majesty. For so many years, Your Majesty has placed great reliance and trust in Empress Su and the Su family, and the position of the Eastern Palace can be said to be unshakable. Who exactly is Mr. Sun's person? Or are they just a simple main battle and have nothing to do with the princes? After much contemplation, I tossed and turned, staying up all night. The next day, Song Sai, with 2 big black circles under his eyes, took Liang Shi around to eat at banquets. At this moment, he suddenly felt a sense of retreat, not because he was unwilling to gamble or lacked ambition, but because he believed it was too early now. After 3 days of contemplation, he went to the main room to rest, grabbed Liang's hand, and called out Liang's small character. "Ah, I may still need to be transferred. Is that so? Shiro has already made a decision." Liang's tone was calm, but her heart was not at all calm, and even the hand held by her husband began to tremble slightly. Mr. Song himself was not calm either. This was the first time he had expressed this idea to his wife, and being able to speak it out almost exhausted all of his energy. For a long time, when both of them calmed down, Song Sai turned over and hugged Liang Shi, hoarsely saying, "I can't bear to part with my husband. I really can't bear to part with him." Tears instantly blurred her eyes, and Liang hugged her husband and burst into tears. Husband. I am also a concubine, and I cannot bear to part with my husband." If Song Qinyue had a chance to listen to the corner, she would certainly roast about her official fan father. He didn't want to part with the Liang family. What he didn't want to part with was the capital city and the broad road that went straight up. The next morning, Song Sai had someone pass a post to Mrs. Song. In the afternoon, servants from the Song family came over to ask Song Sai to come over and talk to him. When he returned home, Song Sai collapsed in the warm pavilion of his study, staring blankly at the ceiling for a long time. He had never thought that Dizzy could be so cold-hearted. When Old Man Song showed him a stack of his tricks and criminal evidence, Fourth Master Song broke out in a cold sweat. Many of these handles were given to him early on, and some were fabricated based on some seemingly false information. They were so well prepared that the rope used to tie the dog might have been around his neck since the day he passed the imperial examination. They have been guarding themselves for a long time, right? If he continues to stubbornly search for connections and try to stay in the capital, Old Master Song and several uncles will probably peel off a layer of skin from him without hesitation. Dong! Song Sai kicked over the small stool out of frustration. He really hates it. Unfortunately, he can only vent his anger now without any strength to fight back. Dad! Someone knocked on the door, and then the door was pushed open. Dad! The clear and joyful voice of the girl sounded, calming the many anxieties in Song Sai's heart. He propped up his body with his arms behind him, looking at the three girls walking by with a somewhat lifeless expression. Song Qingyue struggled to climb onto the Kong and sat down opposite Song Fourth Master, asking, "Lord Song, are we going back to Guangzhou Prefecture after the Chinese New Year?" Guangzhou Prefecture. What, do you want to go back? Song Qingyue lowered her head and thought for a moment before saying, "Actually, it doesn't matter whether you stay in the capital or go back to Guangdong. People like Dad can make a name for themselves no matter where they go." Is that what you think? Song Sai heard the words, "Dad," from the third girl's mouth, and suddenly felt his muscles and veins all over his body relaxed. Well, my daughter really thinks so. Fourth Master Song soon adjusted his mind. 5 days later, it seemed that the battle between all parties had finally come to an end. The emperor officially issued a decree. Song Jianming was appointed as the chief executive of Guangdong province, and he went to take office after the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival. From second grade. Song Sai, who received the imperial decree, was so excited that he trembled all over. The person who came to announce the decree was Little Deng, the disciple of Yin Jianzheng. Little Deng congratulated Lord Song with a smile, but Lord Song repeatedly said he didn't dare. Liang placed a gift box in Little Deng's hand. Upon opening it, there were 3 ginseng roots that were not very big. Xiaodeng Gonggang smiled and declined. How embarrassing. You have worked hard, please don't refuse. Song Jianming was extremely polite. Xiaodeng Gonggang was overjoyed by the 3 words, Zhonggui Ren, and laughed so hard that he couldn't see his eyes. He waved his hand repeatedly and said, "Hey yo. You can't be called Zhonggui Ren, you can't be called Zhonggui Ren. Please don't say that, Song Envoy, it will ruin our family." Song Jianming said obediently, "Little Deng, you've worked hard. A little medicinal herb is not worth it. Just accept it, Grandpa. There's something I don't quite understand." "Sir, please speak. Do you know where the former Guangdong governor Yan went?" "Oh, Yan Da's mother has passed away, please resign from Dingyu." "I see." Lord Song tried his best to suppress the corner of his mouth that was about to rise high. If it weren't for Little Deng's presence, he would really want to laugh 3 times from the sky now. This is the help of heaven. He smiled and stuffed the box into Little Deng's hand, then put an extra purse into his sleeve. "Grandpa, don't refuse. This is a big Chinese New Year, and it's cold outside. I really don't want to thank Grandpa for coming." Xiaodeng Gonggang seemed to refuse, but then reluctantly accepted the ginseng and whispered to Song Sai, "Lord Song, before leaving, Your Majesty will probably summon you again. Do you know what kind of questions Your Majesty will ask? The Japanese invasion cannot be eradicated, Your Majesty's heart is uneasy." "Thank you, Grandpa, for your advice. I dare not take it for granted. Our family is going back now. Congratulations to Lord Song." Song Sai bowed his hand to him and respectfully personally escorted him out of the mansion. After Xiaodeng returned to the palace, he presented the box of ginseng to his master as a filial piety. Yin Jian was lifting the bottom of the box, and there was indeed a thick stack of silver notes below, which was a total of 3,000 taels. Little Deng's eyes were all straight. Eunuch Yin squinted his eyes, pursed his lips, and compared the profits earned from the sea trade. What is this? Song Jianming, hum. He drew out 100 taels of silver to give to Grandpa Deng and said, "Thank you for your hard work. This is for you." He, thank you very much, master. Grandpa Deng excitedly took the silver ticket. Well, following the master, your good days are still ahead. Yes, thank you very much for cultivating me, master. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Handsome Dad's Past. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Handsome Dad's Past. 3 days later, Song Sai was summoned by the emperor to speak in the imperial study early in the morning. He only left the palace gate in the evening. When he entered the palace gate, there was a gust of wind under his feet, and Song Sai held his head and chest high. Liang led his children to welcome him, and Song Sai was in a great mood. He hugged Liang's waist and said, "Ah, you, have 2 drinks with my husband tonight." He also said to a few young people with a pretentious dignity, "Everyone go back to their own house. Have you finished today's homework?" The children chuckled, and the older brother Song Chenhai pulled his 2 younger brothers to do homework. The 4th brother Song Chenrui was only 6 years old and was still gnawing his fingers. When he heard the word homework, his small face immediately collapsed. The 2nd brother Song Chinchu had a bad smile on his face and dragged his younger brother's collar towards the small study. "Big brother, will my mother give us another younger brother and sister this year?" Song Chinchu looked up and asked Song Chenhai. Song Chenhai raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to give the 2nd brother of the human spirit a chestnut on his forehead. What nonsense is the child talking about? Brother. I'm not wrong. Song Chinchu murmured, "I really hope we have another younger brother." Why? Song Chenhai asked with a good temper. This way I can have my younger brother write big characters. If he doesn't listen, he'll hit his palm and spank his butt. Song Chinchu waved his small fist and said with a majestic voice. The 4th son, Song Chenrui, who was standing beside him, listened with a deflated mouth and a look of wanting to cry. He nodded in his heart and said, that's right, that's right. If you have a child, you must have a younger brother. He can also be an older brother and play with him if he has nothing to do. Song Chenhai twitched his lips. Is it because his older brother was too cruel to his younger brother? How much resentment this child has in his heart. The neighboring legitimate branch of Song Mansion has a slightly low air pressure. Grand Tutor Song did not expect that Your Majesty valued Song Si so much. Young and in his early 30s, he is a second-rate employee. This is unparalleled and unprecedented in the history of the Zhou Dynasty. Dad, it seems that it's not just the intention of a few senior officials, but that Your Majesty really values Song Si. Grandpa Song felt a bit uncomfortable in his heart. He was almost 50 years old, and his rank was suppressed by a cousin from a side branch. This was the result of their deliberate suppression by the Song family. How could he not be angry? Grand Tutor Song held a teacup and stared down at the ups and downs of the tea leaves in the cup. Grand Tutor Song is also reflecting, is it really because he is old? Has he ever looked around? The illegitimate son of the illegitimate younger brother's 3rd son, it is said that from top to bottom, there is a group of desolate Tang people. Is it difficult to see a good bamboo sprout from the bamboo shoots, so good that no one can compare to him? After a long silence, Grand Tutor Song spoke up and asked, how many years has Jianshua stayed in Jiangnan? Song Jianshua was the legitimate eldest son of Mr. Song and the legitimate eldest grandson of the Song family's eldest family. He was personally enlightened and taught by the Song Grand Tutor since childhood. He was once selected by His Majesty as the attendant of His Highness Changsun and is currently the governor of Zhenjiang Prefecture. More than 5 years, Grandpa Song immediately became nervous when he saw the old man mention his eldest son, Song Jianchuo. The old man gritted his teeth and said, "Choose the best place for him. After 5 years in the place, he has achieved nothing. It's a waste of my hard work. Dad. Jianchuo is not without achievements." Grandpa Song urgently explained, "It's really that kid Song Jianming, he's so lucky. Luck is indeed good. First of all, the matter of potatoes and corn can be considered as luck. In addition, Your Majesty wanted Song Si to stay in the capital for reuse, but there was a lot of resistance, and there was probably no suitable gap for him. However, Your Majesty wanted to reuse Song Si, but the Guangdong provincial governor Yan Chaoan was worried, and there was a vacancy but there was no suitable candidate. It's both timely and lucky. Song Si, this son is unlucky." Old Master Song also realized that he had just lost his composure. He closed his eyes and rubbed his temples, then said, "Go tell Song Jianming that I want to meet him again before we leave." On the morning of the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival, 4th Master Song went to see old Grand Priest Song. After returning to his house, he went to the main room to find Liang's family to drink. What luck! I think that old man is a fool. Have I boasted about my achievements in Guangzhou Prefecture for the past 6 years? I can reward the farmers and soldiers out of my own pocket, can they? Can they? Song Si scolded old Master Song while drinking. Liang poured him wine and looked at his husband with admiration, saying, "My father is also happy. He said I have good taste." Song Si blushed and felt a little drunk. He leaned over Liang's shoulder, pressed his forehead against her, and a warm breath of alcohol sprayed onto Liang's face. He stared at her for a long time before suddenly kissing her hard. Before finishing a meal, Song Si carried his wife into the bedroom. "My cousin Song Jianchuo is 5 years older than Song Si. He is the eldest grandson of Grand Tutor Song and was personally raised by Grand Tutor Song. At the age of 15, he received 3 yuan in his junior year, making him a benchmark figure in the Song family. Back then, when Song Si was in his hometown in Jiangling, he had heard of this eldest brother, the legitimate branch of the Song family. But Song Si himself was the eldest son of a commoner in the family, and his birth mother was just an outsider, a product of his father's absurd youth. His stepmother regarded him as a hateful bandit, and his grandfather was also absurd. The whole family was absurd. However, no one expected that a good bamboo shoot would emerge from the bamboo. Song Si was an unforgettable and highly intelligent genius, who grew up savagely. At the age of 13, he even achieved the title of a scholar, and his younger brothers were not as good as him. At that time, the legitimate mother was almost furious and drugged his diet, almost killing Song Jianming. Fortunately, his maternal grandfather was a wandering doctor, and his biological mother, Aunt Chen, knew some medicine and saved his life in time. Afterwards, without greeting, he took the 50 taels of silver given to him by his grandfather and went to the capital alone, begging his legitimate branch to take him in and support him. In fact, there are quite a few collateral descendants of the Song family in the capital city, and not every member of the Song family takes them in. However, Song Jianming is an excellent descendant who passed the scholar examination at the age of 13, and the legitimate branch of the Song family naturally agrees. It's just giving a place to sleep and adding an extra pair of chopsticks, which is not a big deal for the Song family with deep roots. However, the Song family in the capital did not expect that in just 3 years, Song Jianming, who was only 16 years old, secretly went to participate in the imperial examination and surprisingly won the first place and passed the imperial examination. He is the youngest Juren of the Zhou Dynasty. Song Jianchuo, who passed the imperial examination in the same year, was already 20.1 years old. Although he ranked very high, 20.1 was considered an extremely young age among the Juren. However, with Song Jianming, everyone was talking about the 16-year-old Juren. In that year's autumn festival, the the limelight was snatched away by the newcomer Song Silang. In this way, Song Jianming was forced by the Song family's uncle to postpone his participation in the imperial examination for 3 years. Song Jianming knew that, in fact, after Song Jianshua became the heir of that year, the Liang family intended to discuss marriage with the Song family. Liang Huaiyu is the most favored eldest daughter of the Liang family and a famous lady in the capital. But Liang Huaiyu fell in love with Song Jianming at a glance. Song Silang was really good-looking and a 16-year-old Juren. She had a big argument with her family and insisted on having her father come to the Song family to discuss marriage. She then waited for Song Jianming for 3 more years until he fell in love with Tanhua and the Liang family agreed to marry her over. When Song Jianming pinned the Liang family under him, he couldn't help but feel proud. He won against Song Jianshua back then. Whether it was a woman, an imperial examination, or an official career, he was a concubine's grandson who cruelly stepped on his legitimate wife. She felt like she was back in her teens, her heart pounding and her rationality completely lacking. The sky outside is shining brightly. Until the sunlight slanted westward, the main house finally needed hot water. In the evening, the children ate some rice dumpling, and the red-faced and proud adult Song announced that the whole family would go to the street. End of this chapter.